Nuts and Bones, my name is Lady V, and welcome to my channel, where I talk about movies, books, and everything in between, as well as occasionally share my journey as a writer/artist. Today I will be discussing not my most recent read, because it's been a while and I didn't mean to put it off for so long, but a read which very quickly became one of my favorite books ever, and in turn, one of my favorite authors to read ever, which was Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, her debut novel from 2006. Lucky me, I found a box set of her work at the thrift store because I'm thrifty as shit and I can't pay for real books. So I was super excited to finally get to my hands on, I only really knew about Gone Girl at the time, but Sharp Objects I had heard many great things about, and it did not disappoint. Sharp Objects follows Camille, a reporter that has left her small town behind, only to have to revisit it years later, when it seems like there may be a killer on the loose, kidnapping young girls. Camille is thrust back into her childhood anti-nostalgia, or at least that's all I can come up with to call it when being acquainted with all those old feelings that you hate. As she tries to stay ahead of the evil unfolding around her, and which she is somehow so intertwined. I recommend this book to anyone, although perhaps maybe not the faint of heart. It's dark, it's gritty, and it's got a lot of commentary on maternal relationships, womanhood, mental health, and abuse. Although I understand Sharp Objects may not appeal to male readers as much because it is a cast of almost entirely fucked up women, I think it's an important work for understanding the harmful social practices that are entwined in feminine circles. It's no secret I gave Sharp Objects 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. On our scale, that means it was perfect, and I loved it. I don't think it was like an ultimate, absolute masterpiece. The pacing at the end felt little bit lackluster, but other than that, I understand why it ended the way that it did, and the immediacy of the danger just took it back a little bit. It hit all of the right disturbing boxes for me personally. The writing style was so visual, direct, and bitter. I can't wait to read more Gillian Flynn, and at this point, the only one I have left to read is Gone Girl, because I have both read her second novel, Dark Places, and I've read her short novella, The Grown Up. Gillian Flynn is connecting herself currently with a lot of TV series, which I am trying to dabble at, and we will get to in the future. Now, on to the spoiler section of the video. I don't know how to feel about Camille. Now that things are just all said and done, she was so well written, and the events that we get to relive with her were so specific. They take on a life of their own. She feels like a real person, and boy, she is fucked up. It's in the same way that when I read We Need to Talk About Kevin, I just felt like Eva was such a person. This is apparently how I fall in love with books, I guess. Is just the characters, the writers. I love the way that Gillian Flynn narrated Camille's life. Normally, there's a need for the author to define what they consider the proper standard for life. Either that or other characters in the story have to act in their stead to make a moral line. For example, it's not right to day drink. Although it's mentioned, that would be a moral line that other books would want to draw. Although this as a moral thing might be mentioned in the novel, it is never a point of high contention. Characters do what they do, and there is no over-analyzing or implications of that against the ideal society. People in Sharp Objects drink whenever the fuck they want. You really have no idea how intoxicated characters are in the book by how they act, because it's just usual, and that's just how they are. And there's also no external commentary on whether that is a good or a bad thing. That's just the town, that's just the society, and it was so refreshing. Also didn't see a little bit of myself in there, but I also like that Camille makes a point to shut her detective love interest down as closed-minded when he says that it's fucked up for a grade 8 girl to be passed around by 4 guys. She basically calls him the bad kind of feminist. We don't know at the time when she's telling him this story and he's reacting negatively to it that she is the girl that they're discussing. And it is actually young Camille that is her first time having sex, and that was in her mind consensual. Like, obviously, we all know that should not be going on, but like I just said, this book doesn't draw hard moral lines. It just tells you what it was for the characters. The book traps its readers in Camille's life narrative of fucked up encounters in extreme circumstances, and although we find the statement of the events, facts, very wrong, like morally wrong, somehow we find ourselves exempting it as a crime because of how she describes it, her perspective, and ability to justify her existence as a flawed human. We're not left with a winding inner dialogue of Camille rethinking the whole thing, whether maybe that kind of thing is fucked up, or even a struggle with Camille's perception of herself. She's an anxious, insecure, mentally unstable narrator, but she knows exactly who she is, and we're not invited to question that. Camille is Camille, and we either accept her and keep reading, or we don't accept her, and we keep reading. It's a unique kind of refreshing writing style, and it lends to Camille's character as a reporter pursuing facts with an obvious blind spot. When I first met Camille, I kind of fell in love with her. She's a reporter with a high tolerance for dark material and a heavily drinking, repressed cutter on the layer underneath that shell. She keeps her realizations raw and takes life as it comes, without a need to spin a narrative around herself and follow it like most other people do. Then there hits a certain point in the book, as you're so deep into feeling like you know her, she becomes entirely unrelatable. She's too specific, she's too real, and suddenly, I don't know if we'd really be friends. This is a writing pro more than it is a flaw, to be sure, but it left me very uneasy, especially at the end. If anything, I'm glad I dissociated from her because the ending was so goddamn bleak. It's not dwelled on nearly as long as it could have been, and we get a little excerpt catching up on the aftermath of the climax, kind of like an epilogue, where we get to see where Camille and the other characters end up. Like, the facts that roll at the end of an unsolved mystery documentary. By the end, I feel like Camille isn't someone that I could vibe with anymore, because when all the pieces come together, the illusion of a strong woman that's overcome so much and has such strong, bold opinions was just a sickening sight of a victim in every aspect of her life. Her life got ruined on a Shakespearean level. I don't know how you live with that, honestly. You don't. And knowing that she, even as a fictional character, is still alive and struggling with all of that PTSD and mental health bullshit and literal family disintegration to be almost completely alone in the world at that age, I couldn't fucking do that. It's tragic. The portrait Gillian Flynn painted of this woman is tragic. I can't think of a book that I've read where a character has been so irrevocably destroyed by the end of it. It's awesome and it's terrible and I love it, but it makes me sick thinking about Camille Preaker. On to other aspects of the book though, like I said, the need to not define proper conduct felt liberating, but at the same time the writing managed to enforce a looming sense of disgust and disappointment whenever Camille did something wrong. It nails that so well in a lot of ways, and especially through her interactions with her mother. When you first meet her and she's exactly as Camille described, someone who only makes comments that make you feel like a burden instead of asking how you are. For example, when she shows up, she gets the question, "When are you expecting to leave?" as a way of secretly saying, get the fuck out, even though you pretend that you're happy that you're seeing them again. That was one of the more harder parts of the book to read. If you've been around passive aggression, this book might hurt you. I know Sharp Objects is an objectively adult book, but I was actually impressed at the lack of hand-holding it gave its readers. Camille isn't a character that sits in thought like, oh, but if that person made that comment, it must recontextualize what I heard that character say yesterday and now. Like, no. You get bits of what she feels, but for once, we're not given a Mary Sue designed to explain everything for us or give us a lens to look through. I'd also like to praise the complexity of all of the other characters. Everyone always felt like they had a motive and a life outside of Camille's interactions with them, whether the snippets we got of them made cohesive sense or not. The women were wild and complicated. I didn't understand Emma until the last fourth of the book. She was a fucking roller coaster, and somehow I never questioned her inner consistency. I loved that the book didn't shy away from realistic things like preteens having sex and doing drugs, as well as the secret lives of housewives and their constant vie for social dominance. The manipulation people use on one another to get what they want, and how it's extremely obvious except when it's not. It captured all of that, and you know what? Okay, actually, Sharp Objects is a masterpiece. Anyway, I'll stop my praise here and just recommend that you read it. What I didn't know before I started reading this book is that it got turned into a series by HBO, so I will promptly be watching that. The comparison video may take a little bit longer to get out there, but keep an eye out for it. So, that's the end of the video. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, I have a link to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!